So did you watch the Oscars at all on Sunday night?
I did not. And Chris
Jake
Eckenweiler,
didn't have you super excited to watch the Oscars together?
No. First of all, that man, he doesn't know anything. Like he doesn't. Chris Eckenweiler though, he's gonna be not disappointed. But I'm excited to hear what he thought of the Oscars because I know nothing. He knows it all. So then it's kind of like getting the information from an expert.
Yeah, but you are a movie person. Like you like
I
movies.
do like movies.
Yeah.
But like, okay, I like dumb movies. Like I'm not, I like dumb movies.
Yeah.
I don't like
any good movies
ones.
lately? Anything that like strikes it?
No, but also I have a 5-year-old at home. So
yeah.
We went and saw Mufasa. That was good. I like
Yeah.
music.
We just watched
still
it too.
listen to that.
Yeah.
And then I think Moana 2 is coming out soon.
I've seen that one as well.
Well, so we haven't seen it, but I think
Okay.
I wait for it to come out.
It's a setup movie. There will be a Moana 3.
Okay, yeah, I've heard mixes, but also a 5-year-old, she's not gonna care.
She's gonna love it.
I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, she's gonna love it.
So, I mean, your kids probably.
They have more of the Kakamora ones, the coconut guys.
Oh.
You get more coconut guys, so that was a win for me.
Oh, you like? Okay.
I like the coconut guy.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't like the coconut guy in Moana?
Like I just don't care. I don't.
No,
think.
you don't.
I don't really get into
coconut
it.
Guy stands for the Disney movie Moana.
I know
at
you
all.
have them all
Wow.
over your office right now, but I just didn't think you were that into it. That's
I have
crazy.
what all over my office right now?
Little statues of little coconut guys in your office. Haven't everybody? Guys, if you don't know this, Jake just has a bunch of Disney memorabilia in his office.
What are you talking about?
That's him. Come see it. I'm just kidding. Speaking of coconut guys, what about donut guys?
Donut guys. There you go. We got a donut question.
Like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not actually a donut question. I don't know if a lot of people who watch this will know who Jelly Roll is.
Yeah.
That's fine. So I was trying to explain it to Jake.
Yeah. Because this left me way in the dust here.
I don't even know that much, honestly.
Okay.
I've seen him before. He has a great voice. He's a singer. From the videos that I've watched, he kind of had a rough upbringing, rough life, and now he's turning it around. And he is,
Cool.
Talking about Jesus, and his wife helped him kind of like get out of that. And she also had a rough upbringing, and now they're just trying to figure out this Jesus thing, I think is how they would say it.
Welcome to the journey.
Yep. And he had a song with Brandon Lake, which I think a lot of people probably know Brandon Lake. We sing some of the songs.
Yeah, he does a lot of stuff on Christian music industry right now. A lot of worship songs people sing on Sundays. We do, yeah.
Yes. That. And so like they kind of have been like promoting together and like doing some videos. And I think they made a song. So this is kind of our first question.
Yeah.
Is why do you think people are so upset about Jelly Roll being on Brandon Lake's new song? If Jelly Roll put his faith in Jesus, shouldn't we all be happy about what God is doing in his life, even if there are still things he's choosing to do that do not align perfectly with God? Does God's grace not cover him?
Nice. There you go. So we can't talk about Jelly Roll without me having a donut take. All right. So we'll get to that later.
Oh, we'll get to the question why everybody's here.
Well, we'll do the question first because that's probably the more important thing for sure. I think it's cool. I mean, there are, what was the, there's a Christian rapper who's been around forever.
He's been around forever.
Yeah. I can't think of his name now. I should have looked him up ahead of time, but he's been doing stuff as a backup singer and adding on different secular rap artists here lately too. Like I know that as well. So you're kind of actually seeing this going like both ways on some of these things. And that's pretty common in the music industry and has been common.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Now that you say that, Forrest Frank, the new upcoming guy.
Yeah, I like Forrest Frank.
Doing something with Thomas Rhett, country singer.
Yeah, so this is like, it's just part of the industry and how it goes. Because a lot of times, the companies, they own multiple labels. Right, are all reporting to one company, and they're saying, hey, we want these labels to collaborate in these different ways to reach out in different audiences, and so like there's a whole like financial piece behind the scenes, I'm sure, on a part of this is how these collaborations come together. As far as this goes, Jelly Roll being on Brandon Lake's new song. Man, I hope the best for Jelly Roll. Like, whatever it is. Man, that sounds so funny. I want the best for Jelly Roll. I want the best for the guy, just like anybody else. I hope he's pursuing Jesus, and that looks crazily different for all of us. We adhere to what we refer to as centered set theology, not bounded set. real quick explanation of that. Bound and Set theology says like, hey, here's the 5, 10, 40, whatever your list is, things to be in the club, if you will. You have to dress this way. You have to talk this way. You can't do these kinds of things. You have to believe the specific thing, boom, 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 boom. And you have to kind of hit that criteria to get there. For us, our church in a centered set theology, it's like if you took a piece of paper and drew a cross at the middle of it, and then you put a bunch of dots all over the rest of the paper, we'd all be the dots trying to move towards Jesus. And that's really, are you moving towards Jesus? Even our mission statement, to help all people move towards a life fully devoted to Jesus Christ. It's all about moving towards Jesus for us. And that towards path, man, can look pretty messy. Usually not a straight line for most of us. It's never been in my life. It's more squiggly all over the line, but directionally kind of shifting towards Jesus, hopefully. And I'd hope that to be the same, for this guy. I'm sure there's things in his life, and I'm sure there's things maybe in his music that don't align up perfectly with Jesus, but if he's praising Jesus, God is glorified. Yeah,
and I think, too, it's important for people to remember, like, it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know this guy personally. I don't know.
Really? You don't?
Right?
You haven't been on a yacht with Jelly Roll?
No,
huh?
I have not.
Man.
I don't know where his heart is, but like we just you just hope for the best for them. Yeah. Like you said, like I just want the best for him, and I want him to be doing that. And I think that can go for a lot of other celebrities and music people, like. Because there's celebrities who say that they're Christian, and then some people are like, well, they did this and they did this, and it's like, I hope that they are moving that, and they just didn't say it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just kind of.
I think the bigger controversy here, and the thing that I think this actually points out to me, is that we have to hone the skill. I would say as a society, but as Christ followers, this is a pretty healthy thing to have too, of just not caring about certain things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like not everything I need to have an opinion about or care about. Nope. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't care at all about Jelly Roll and his collaboration with Brandon Lake. I haven't listened to the song. I don't know the name of the song. I don't know anything on there. I could have absolutely looked this up ahead of time and done that. That tells you how much like it just doesn't need to be in my brain space or an opinion for it. So I'm giving an opinion because it was a question in here, and I'm glad to be able to do so. Yeah. But at the same time, not losing sleep, not worried about it. And so like when people get up in arms over this kinds of stuff, to me, that's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
That's mission drift, dude. There are so many other things in our life that we need to worry about and focus on. Is there going to be a third Moana movie, for instance?
Yeah, right.
Like those important things that not have to worry about Jelly Roll and his collaboration with Brandon Lake.
Yep.
Great. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. Like that doesn't need to be something that I'm going to invest in. So if you are heavily invested in that, you've got more time than I do.
Don't talk to Jake Howard about it.
So
he knows
don't
nothing.
Talk to me about it. I don't.
Sorry.
If you want to talk about 80s hair bands on there,
then
or
you could have
you want to get into some Journey or some Queen, or even some Elton John. We can get some Elton John. I've been on a kick for him lately on some stuff there. He's got some good songs too. We'll talk about those. Yeah.
But there's a limit.
Yeah,
there's a line.
There's a line.
That's all I got.
Yeah, it's Jelly Roll. Elton John I'll talk about. Jelly Roll I will not.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. There you go. Because that's the brand of me, I guess.
Excuse me. Well, so let's kind of, get into some more uplifting talk. The title of your message was Peace and Suffering.
Yeah.
So why don't you give a quick little recap before we jump into some more questions?
Yeah, peace and suffering. So we're keeping through our Getting It Right series, looking at the first 8 chapters of Romans, and Paul stacking his arguments to make a case for Jesus. Mm-hmm. Really with this overarching idea of why is Jesus the one true way? All the religions, all the belief systems, all that, why is that there? And we're looking at Paul's argument for why Jesus is the way. And he kind of shifts here in Romans chapter 5. The very first word is therefore. And they always say if you see therefore, look and see what is it actually there for. In other words, what's the stuff that comes before it? And Paul summarizes it immediately, since we've been justified through faith. Like that's the first 4 chapters. Like that's the argument Paul is trying to build. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're broken. We can't fix ourselves. We need God to do it. God's right in his judgment. And it's because of Jesus that we can be justified through faith. Like boom, first 4 chapters of Romans there. And then he moves and makes this transition. And he says in there, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. I think that kind of summarizes that one verse, a little bit of what he's getting at in these first 11 verses to be there. But really, we just talked about this idea that as followers of Jesus, we both have a peace that surpasses all understanding, like that ability to have that, and the expectation that we are going to experience hardship. Mm-hmm. like that these go hand in hand. And it's easy throughout, I think, the history of Christianity, the history of the church. If you look, you've seen people who like to emphasize one or the other. Every day of Friday, once you have God in your life, like, man, everything is just going to be fantastic. We'll just name it, claim it. We'll pray about it. It'll be fantastic. Any hardship that comes in your life is because you don't have enough faith, like all of those kinds of stuff. And it's like, okay, bring that pendulum back over here. You've gone way too far off the deep end. And then on the other piece of it, you've got, in my mind, I think of like the monastic lifestyle, where they keep all pleasure away. Oh. And it's got to be like, I can't talk. I have to really hone in. I'm eating bland food and living in this monastery with all these other guys. It probably smells terrible. I don't know. Right. Just thinking locker room mentality. I don't know what monks smell like. I've never sniffed a monk. So there you go. Anyway. But like all those things that are in there. So that suffering is the only thing that you can have by following Jesus. It's the only way that you can really connect with God. And yet Paul's argument, I think here, is that it's you get both. Like you have a peace from God, but you are honed through your suffering. Like that is going to happen. And that happens, and that refinement happens inside of us because Jesus is inside of us as well. So that's kind of the whole point that we're trying to get to. Hopefully we arrived at.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe you just answered it with that, but we'll go over it again. Should I go out and make myself suffer to make me a better Christian?
Just to be honest, you don't have to do that. It's going to happen naturally.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason to go out and suffer to make yourself a better Christian. Once again, like I feel like there's a bit of that in some monastic circles. There's even a history of, I wish I could think of the term for it, but where people, as they would have temptations, they would cause themselves physical harm. Like to the suffering as this like association piece, or to like cleanse themselves from it, which is totally not what the Bible says at all. Like that's way off the deep end on this kinds of stuff. So like people have taken this suffering way too far on there. And I don't think God is saying like you have to go seek out suffering. I think he's just saying, hey, recognize suffering is a part of being a Christ follower.
Right.
Like we're in a war. Satan is trying to destroy you, all these things. He's going to throw trials. He's going to throw things in your life that are difficult, and he's going to know exactly where the chink in your armor is, and he's full bore coming at that. So just know it. But recognize that when you depend on God in those suffering, it's going to build up spiritual muscle inside of you. You will grow. You will be refined. You will be stronger as a result of it and able to do more. Like your impact will grow as you go through these things. As you depend more on God, God will grow you through that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to seek it out.
I liked how you did that, where you're like, oh, it's like working out, where it's horrible while you're doing it. Like this is the worst.
Yeah. There are some psychos out there that love like that piece of it when they played sports. I was never the guy who was like, oh, it's weight room day. Let's go.
Well, and you know what's funny about it too is like when you're in it, like like for me anyway, like I knew, I'm like, okay, this will make me better in the long run, but man, I don't want to be doing this. So it even added another layer as you were talking, where I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, I really understood that. And something else that I thought of is when I was younger, because I grew up in church my whole life, heard different Christians talking, sharing their testimony, and I had the audacity to say, like, man, I have such a boring testimony. Like, I grew up in church my whole life. Yeah. That's so boring. I've never had any problems. It's like, shut up, bro. Like, Past Sylvia, if I could go back, like, stop.
Chill out.
Yeah, please stop.
Yeah.
Stop talking. Which is just, it's funny to look back on now, because like you said, it'll happen.
Yeah, it's coming.
Don't you worry.
It's coming.
Something
all the time.
Will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so speaking of testimonies, another question, maybe from Rick, maybe not. Maybe. Can you share an example of peace and suffering in your life?
Yeah. I think just in some general senses, there's been times I know financially we've had some different struggles on things that it's not necessarily been poor choices. We've had financial issues from our own poor choices before, but things that just happen, right? Like it could be the whole car breakdown and electric bill being too high and like all the things that come and they just seem to hit you in those waves. And then you're like, what in the world? What's going on here? I remember very early on in our marriage, you're filling out all your paperwork as far as like, I want this to go to retirement. I want this to go here. And I had to make some adjustments and I did it wrong. And I put an entire paycheck went to our retirement. So I like missed a paycheck, right? This is like young, dumb Jake, right?
And that stuff's confusing, man. I don't blame you.
Yeah. So I was like, oh my goodness, talk about a hard lesson to learn. And it's around Christmas time, right? Throughout all this stuff. And so it was like, okay, well, it's a hard lesson to be able to have to learn and be able to make it. Now, is this like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, that was Satan attacking me. No, that was my own stupidity. And not asking enough questions or learn. It's like tons of things that I got to learn out of that situation, but you still feel the pressure, right? And you still feel those things. And I think there's other times that like we've gone through those moments, and the temptation, at least in my life, because when finances get tight, you always got to think through like, what do we cut? And it's like if Satan gets the megaphone in my life where he's like, oh, it's your tithe, man. It's your tithe. Like it's your giving in the church. It's this or that, right? And so like there's always those times. And I've been on that journey up and down, right? Where I've fallen into that temptation or where I've said, no, I'm going to resist that and gone back and forth. You know, that's why we do recurring giving because I just take it right off the table. Like it's just part of it. And I realized at one point in time, like I initially didn't do recurring giving because I wanted to give and worshipfully. So I made it that point to do. But then when I realized Satan was using that as a tool against me to like whisper in my ear, and it became no longer like this worship, but it became a spiritual battle in my life. And I was like, I don't have to fight this battle. I can just set it up on recurring like I do so many other things, you know, like my electric bill that's recurring and all this other stuff. It's just budgeted in at that point in time, you know? And so it made it a lot more easier on those kinds of stuff. And I think that for me, finances has been a place that there's been struggle, and there's been places that we've learned and we've grown and we've become more dependent on God as a result of it. And we've grown in how we handle our finances and what we've learned. And that's not to say everything's perfect all the time to be able to do. You know, we're a single income home because we want things for our girls, with my wife being a stay-at-home mom and a decision that we made there. That's not for everybody, but it is for us. And so, figure that out with side hustles and things that we've been able to do, and just trust that God has provided in there. And it has given us confidence and more faith in some of the financial realms. I think about, for me as a parent, one of the struggles I had was of control. Our Addie's got some different stuff with her vision that she's gone through. Had to have eye surgery to be a part of it. She's doing some vision therapy stuff of just training her brain on her eye. And there's lots of kids that go through this stuff, right? For us, it rocked our little world because that's nothing. Ashley and I have never had vision stuff in our life, in our families or anything like that very much. So it's like just a realm we didn't know about. And so like trying to figure all these kinds of things out has been a struggle at different times. And it's forced us as parents how to learn to advocate for your kids and speak up, you know, a little bit more and to do stuff, but also just recognize like there are burdens that she's had to bear as a result of it that is hard as a parent to watch, that I can't just fix for her, you know, to watch God build resiliency into her. And watch God pour out all these skill sets as a small kid that I look at and I go, man, I'm watching her struggle right now. And that's hard as a parent, but I also recognize, man, God is building something in her at a young age that he's going to use so much later in life to make her better that other people wouldn't be able to do, because she's learning those skills now. That, man, I wish I would have learned some of those skills at her age, even now, you know what I mean? That resiliency, those kinds of things. So it's cool to watch how that struggle even comes in your kid's life and to be a part of stuff. Man.
Have you ever seen that saying where people say like, you can't protect your kids from their testimony?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure. But we would if we could.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And it's hard.
Yeah.
And then it makes you think about how God feels like watching us.
Yeah.
Like,
but he's such a good parent that he also, I think, once again, like, there's certain struggles, like, you know, some stuff, Addie's vision or whatever. We could pull her out of all that, you know, and there's days, man, I don't want to do these exercises with her. It's a struggle. It is a pain. It's hard for her. It's hard for me to like stay in the moment and try to be encouraging, as she's just tired at the end of the day and all this other stuff. And it's difficult for her. And I could say like, all right, cool, we're just done. We're just not going to do that. Well, what's going to happen? She's not going to grow. Her eyes aren't going to get better, and she's not going to learn these life skills and all these other stuff. So as a parent, I have to let my kid struggle. I have to let her go through this. And that's hard because I love her. I don't necessarily want to see her struggle, but I know it's good for her. I think God has that similar mindset for us too, where he says, hey, you have to go through these struggles because it's the way that you're going to get better. It's the way that you're going to learn. It's the way that you're going to do these things. I don't want hardship in your life, but we live in a broken world. Hardship is a result of it. I'm going to be here walking you through this hardship and watching you grow and get better because it's what matters. And I love you enough. I love you enough to let you go through this hardship and to be with you in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, and it's always hard to explain it to people maybe who haven't ever felt that or have had to deal with it. And like for me and my husband, like I've talked about on here before, but like losing our son, like it was so hard for me to talk to people because I'm like, no, like I'm not mad at God. Like I'm definitely like just confused, like what's going on. But also we had such a peace about it. Yeah. And I think some people can get, or like you get it mixed up. And I think I talked to Rick about this where I'm like, how can two things be true at once? Yeah. How can I be so at peace with everything about this, but at the same time still be sad? And like, and still cry and like still do all these things. But at the same time, I am so peaceful about what is going on and like how that's gone forward. And I know like, a friend of ours, they just lost their daughter too. And I'm talking to my husband, like, what do we do? Like, because I'm like, we should know what to do. And like, I really struggled with it. Like, well, do it like, but everybody's different, like, well, something that made me feel good might not make her feel good. Like, and I really struggled with that. Like, how do I help somebody with this peace and suffering that I have just went through? And it was funny because I was praying about it and it just hit me where I'm like, you didn't do anything. Like it was not you that made yourself feel peaceful. So why don't you just sit down and let the Holy Spirit work through that? Like listen for when you feel like I'm supposed to reach out, or when I'm, give her the books that helped me, that show you God's love and everything like that. And instead of worrying about what to do, had nothing to do with you.
Like it's not dependent on you at all.
Yeah. So, I think that that's a good point too, because some people feel like, well, I went through it, I should know what to do. And it's like, I didn't do anything. Right. God had his hand in my life from the start. And it's so cool and crazy to see how he's just pushing me right along too. I'm like, man, it's crazy. He never said it was going to be easy, but it's a good ride. Like, so.
Yeah. And I think there's something to that. Like for some reason, and we should know better, right? Because we all experience life, but yet we still have this assumption that we can only have one feeling at a time.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, that's just not true. We are complex individuals, and you can feel sad and angry at the same time, grievous anger. You can feel peace and sorrow at the same time. Like you can feel complex emotions in there. I think there's something about maturing and learning how to deal with complex emotions, right? Like that's a skill set that would be, man, let's put that in high school classes, right? Trigonometry, you're out. Emotions, woo,
you're in.
You're in.
We're gonna start with Inside Out.
We're gonna start with Inside Out. 1
Another
and 2,
Disney movie.
Right? There you go. It's Disney movie day, apparently.
Yes.
But that is a thing. I think just the ability to recognize, like, you can have more than one feeling. Other people can have more than one feeling. God shows us that in Scripture if you really look. Of things like how he's feeling. I think Jesus is a great example. The Garden of Gethsemane is probably the most complex emotional experience maybe in Scripture. And to be able to deal with that, I think of David losing his child and the complex emotions that he's going through based off of his choices and his role and the sorrow that he's coming and all the things that are going on there, and to see how people handle and deal with those. So I just think it's okay to recognize you can have complex emotions and at the same time still trust in God through them.
That's why I love the title, Peace and Suffering. Yeah. Like
they feel like opposite things.
Yes.
And that's what we tried to talk about from the beginning. I loved that analogy of how the peace symbol was created. And the creator
I didn't know
decided.
That.
Yeah.
The more you know.
I didn't have a clue about that, right? And that it was just that idea of he put despair in peace. I would have never thought that. Yeah. I would have never thought that despair has a hidden meaning inside the peace symbol, and yet it does. And I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah. That's pretty accurate in a lot of ways. So, yeah.
Well, gosh, I feel so much more like just knowledge, from you coming this way.
Osmosis.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, thanks, Jake. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you on Sunday.